I knew something was wrong the moment my mother stopped calling me son. It wasn't sudden. It didn't happen with shouting or anger. It was quieter than that, colder, the kind of cold that settles into a house long before anyone admits it's there. I was standing in the kitchen when she said it. "Daniel," she called, her voice flat, almost formal, "come sit down, we need to talk." Those words never mean anything good. I wiped my hands slowly and walked into the living room. My father was already there, sitting in his usual chair, staring at his phone like whatever was on it mattered more than anything else in the room. Chloe was stretched across the couch, scrolling, barely glancing up as I entered. For a second I just stood there, waiting, because something in the air felt final. "Sit," my father said without looking at me. I did, across from them, like I was being called into a meeting I hadn't agreed to attend. My mother folded her hands in her lap, took a small breath, and then said the words that changed everything. "We think it's time for you to move out." No hesitation, no softness, just a decision already made. I blinked once, letting it settle. "Move out," I repeated quietly. "You've been here for months without contributing," my father added, finally looking up. His tone wasn't angry, it was worse than that, it was dismissive. "I've been trying," I said. "I apply every day, interviews take time." "Time," Chloe cut in, letting out a small laugh. "You've had 6 months, Daniel, 6 months," that number again. It sounded different coming from her. Like it was proof of failure. To them it was, to me it was something else entirely. "I just need a little more time," I said, keeping my voice steady. My mother shook her head slightly. "No. You've had enough time." There was something in her tone that made it clear. This wasn't a discussion. This was the end of one. "You're almost 30, my father said. "You can't keep depending on us." Depending on them, I almost smiled. Not because it was funny, but because it was so far from the truth. "If this is about money, it's about everything," Chloe snapped. "You have no direction, no ambition, you just exist." Her words hung in the air longer than they should have. No ambition. If she only knew, if any of them knew, but they didn't, because I never told them, because I wanted to see who they were without knowing, and now I had my answer. My mother leaned forward slightly. "We're not saying this to hurt you. We're saying it because you need to grow up." Grow up, that phrase hit harder than the rest, because it came from people who had no idea what I had already built quietly without them. "When do I have to leave?" I asked. They exchanged a quick glance. "End of the week," my father said. "Of course, fast, clean, convenient." Chloe smirked faintly, like this was something she had been waiting for. "Don't worry," she added, her voice dripping with fake sympathy. "Maybe this will finally push you to do something with your life." I looked at her. Really looked at her, and for the first time in years I didn't feel the need to argue, because arguing would mean trying to prove something, and I was done proving things to people who had already made up their minds, so I nodded. All right, that seemed to catch them off guard. Maybe they expected resistance, emotion, something, but I gave them nothing because there was nothing left to give. That night I packed quietly, 2 suitcases, that was all it took. Clothes, a few personal things, some old memories I wasn't sure why I kept, and one small black folder. I picked it up last, held it in my hands for a moment. It didn't look like much, just paper, but inside was everything. Contracts, ownership documents, financial records, proof of something they would never believe until they saw it for themselves. 6 months ago, on the same day I lost my job, I signed the papers that made me the majority owner of Viron Tech. The same company that had fired me, the same company my father worked for, the same company Chloe had recently joined, proudly telling everyone she was finally moving up in life. They thought I was unemployed, lost, dependent. They had no idea I owned the ground they stood on every morning. I placed the folder carefully into my suitcase and zipped it closed. No hesitation, no second thoughts. I didn't sleep that night, not because I was upset. Because I was thinking, replaying everything, every word, every expression, every choice they made, not with anger but with clarity, because clarity changes everything. The next morning I carried my bags to the front door. No one stopped me. My mother was in the kitchen making coffee like it was any normal day. My father had already left for work. Chloe was on the couch again, exactly where she had been the night before. Same position, same expression, like nothing had changed. "Good luck," she muttered without looking up. I opened the door, paused for just a second, then stepped outside. The air felt different, lighter, like something had been removed, not taken, released. I turned back once, looking at the house. The place I had spent years trying to belong in. Then I said quietly, "You really should have looked a little closer." And then I left. They thought they had just removed a problem from their lives, something inconvenient, something unnecessary. What they didn't understand was that in just a few days, they were going to walk into their office, sit at their desks, and realize they had just thrown away the one person who now owned everything they depended on. The hotel room was quiet, Too quiet, not the kind of silence that feels peaceful, but the kind that forces you to hear your own thoughts. I dropped my suitcase near the wall and stood there for a moment, not moving, not unpacking, just standing. It should have felt like a loss, leaving home, being pushed out, hearing those words, but it didn't. What I felt instead was something colder, clearer, like a door had finally closed and I didn't have to pretend anymore. I loosened my collar and walked over to the window. The parking lot below was empty except for a few scattered cars, their reflections stretching across the asphalt under the dim lights. Ordinary, everything looked ordinary. And yet nothing was. I reached into my suitcase and pulled out the black folder. For a moment I just held it, then I opened it, page after page of signatures, numbers, authority, Daniel Carter, majority shareholder. I traced my name with my eyes, not out of pride, but out of confirmation. This was real. Everything that had happened over the last 6 months, every decision, every risk, every silent move had led here. And tomorrow everything would change. Morning came early, it always did. I woke before the alarm, already aware of the weight of the day ahead, not nervous, not excited, just focused. I got ready without rushing, simple clothes. Clean lines, nothing loud, power didn't need to be loud. By the time I stepped outside, the city was just starting to wake up. People moving, cars filling the streets, coffee in hand, conversations already forming, normal life, routine. Predictable, I drove in silence. No music, no distractions, just the road ahead and the building slowly coming into view. Viron Tech. From a distance it looked the same as always, glass exterior catching the morning light. Employees walking in through the front doors, security scanning badges. To them it was just another workday. To me it was the moment everything shifted. I didn't park in my old spot, that space belonged to someone else now. Someone who thought they had taken my place. Instead I parked in the executive section. Empty, reserved, untouched. I stepped out of the car and adjusted my sleeves slightly before walking toward the entrance. Each step felt steady, measured. Like I had already walked this path 100 times in my head. The security guard at the front glanced up as I approached. Recognition flickered across his face. "Daniel," he said, confused. "I thought you." I handed him the card. A different one, not the employee badge he remembered. Something new, something that didn't require explanation. He looked down at it and everything changed. His posture straightened immediately. His expression shifted from confusion to something closer to respect. "Sir," he said quickly, stepping aside. I gave a small nod and walked past him. No scene, no announcement, just a quiet change in how the world responded. Inside, the building felt familiar. Same layout, same sounds, same routine, but the way people looked at me that had already started to change. Some recognized me, some didn't, some whispered. "I thought he got fired. Why is he back? Is he meeting someone?" I didn't stop, didn't acknowledge it, because none of it mattered, not yet. The elevator ride felt longer than usual, not because it was. Because I was aware of every second. The mirrored walls reflected the same person I had always been, same face, same posture, but something behind the eyes had shifted. Not anger, not pride, just certainty. When the doors opened to the executive floor, everything became quieter, controlled, refined. This was a place I had never been allowed to stand before, at least not like this. The assistant at the front desk looked up as I approached. Her polite smile faded slightly when she recognized me. "I'm sorry," she said carefully. "This area is restricted." I placed the card in front of her. She looked down, paused, then looked back up at me. And just like that, everything changed again. "I wasn't informed you'd be arriving today," she said, quickly standing. "You are now," I replied, simple, direct, no explanation needed. The conference room was already set. Chairs arranged, screens ready, documents laid out. A meeting was about to happen, an important one. Quarterly review, executives, managers, decision makers, including my father, including Chloe. I stepped inside and moved toward the far end of the room. Waiting, watching, people started filing in. One by one, conversations low, casual, unaware. They didn't notice me at first. Why would they? In their minds, I didn't belong here. Then my father walked in. He looked tired, more than usual, the kind of tired that builds over time, work pressure, expectations, fear of falling behind. I had seen it in the reports. He didn't see me. He took his seat, adjusting his sleeves, preparing for what he thought was just another meeting. Chloe came in shortly after, confident, relaxed, phone in hand, expression slightly bored. She laughed at something someone said as she walked in, taking her seat without even glancing around the room. Still unaware. Good. The room filled, voices blended, papers shuffled, people settled. Then the door closed and silence followed. The CEO stood at the front, clearing his throat. "Thank you all for coming," he began. "Before we start, there's an important update regarding company ownership." That got attention. People straightened slightly. Focused, I stepped forward. Slowly, deliberately, that's when they saw me. My father frowned immediately, confusion turning into irritation. "What is he doing here?" he muttered. Chloe looked up next, her expression shifting from boredom to disbelief. "Seriously," she whispered. "He followed us here." Whispers spread across the room, recognition, confusion. "He was fired. Why is he here?" I didn't speak, I just kept walking, until I reached the front, standing beside the CEO. He stepped back slightly, not out of hesitation, but acknowledgement. "Effective immediately," he said, his voice clear. "Viron Tech has undergone a change in majority ownership." The room went still, my father sat up straighter. Chloe's eyes narrowed, the CEO turned toward me, then said it, clearly, without pause, "Please welcome Daniel Carter." Silence, heavy, unavoidable. My father stared at me like he was trying to force reality to correct itself. Like if he looked long enough, this would stop being true. Chloe laughed, short, sharp, disbelieving. "No," she said, shaking her head. "No, that's not possible." I met her eyes, calm, steady. "It is," I said. And in that moment, everything they believed about me started to fall apart. The room didn't recover from that moment. It couldn't, because some things once said don't leave space for normal reactions. They just sit there, heavy, unavoidable. My father was still staring at me, not blinking, not moving. Like if he stayed still enough, this would all reverse itself, like reality had made a mistake. Chloe shook her head again, this time slower. "No," she said under her breath, "this doesn't make sense." I didn't rush to explain. I didn't need to, the truth was already in the room. The CEO stepped aside, giving me space. Not as a gesture, as acknowledgement, I looked around the table, at the faces that once saw me as just another employee. Some of them had ignored me, some had underestimated me, some had simply never noticed me at all. Now they were all watching. 6 months ago, I said calmly, this company started losing control of its own direction. My voice carried clearly. No hesitation, no uncertainty, poor decisions, mismanaged departments, resources wasted on things that didn't matter. A few people shifted in their seats because they knew they had seen it, some had been part of it. I was here during that time, I continued. I saw the problems up close. My father's expression changed slightly, recognition because he remembered, long nights, conversations I had tried to have, things he had dismissed. And when the opportunity came to fix it, I said, I took it. Chloe let out a quiet scoff. "Fix it," she said. "You couldn't even keep your own job." I turned my head toward her slowly. "I didn't lose my job," I said. The room stilled again. I stepped away. That landed harder because it changed the story completely. My father's eyes narrowed slightly. "You're saying that was intentional?" "Yes," one word, no explanation attached. Chloe leaned forward, her voice sharper now. "That doesn't make any sense. Why would you pretend to fail?" I held her gaze. "Because I wanted to see what failure looked like to you." Silence, again, but different this time, more personal. "And now I know," I added. She leaned back slowly, not confident anymore, not comfortable. The CEO cleared his throat gently. "Mr. Carter has already initiated several internal reviews," he said, trying to guide things forward. I nodded once and turned toward the screen behind me. With a single click, data appeared, numbers, reports, clear evidence of everything I had said. "Every department has been evaluated," I said. "Performance, efficiency, long-term sustainability." The room focused, because now it wasn't about me anymore, it was about them. "Some areas will be restructured," I continued. "Some roles will be reassessed." That word again, reassessed. My father's jaw tightened slightly. He knew what that meant. "This isn't about punishment," I said. "It's about correction." I paused, letting that settle. "Everyone will be judged by the same standard," I added. My eyes moved across the table. Then stopped on them, no exceptions. That was the moment it became real, not just shocking, not just surprising, real. Chloe stood up suddenly. "This is insane," she said. "You can't just walk in here and start acting like you run everything." I looked at her, calm, unmoved. "I don't have to act," I said. That was enough. She opened her mouth to argue, then stopped because there was nothing to argue against. My father stood up more slowly. "Daniel," he said, his voice lower now, more controlled, "this isn't how things work." I tilted my head slightly. "This is exactly how things work," I replied. He took a step closer, not aggressive. "Just uncertain. You should have said something," he added, "before all of this." There it was, the first shift, not accusation, not authority, regret. I held his gaze. "And what would have changed?" I asked quietly. He didn't answer. Because he didn't have one. Chloe looked between us, frustration building again. "This doesn't change who you are," she said. "You're still the same person." I nodded slightly. "Yes," I said, "I am." That confused her. "And that's exactly the problem," I added. She frowned. "You never took the time to understand who I was," I said. "You just decided." Her expression tightened because she knew there was truth in that. The room remained silent. No one interrupting, no one stepping in because this wasn't just business anymore. This was something else. I stepped back slightly, creating space. This meeting isn't about the past, I said finally. It's about what happens next. That shifted the focus again, back to control, back to structure. Detailed evaluations will be shared by the end of the week, I continued. Until then, everything operates as normal, normal. A word that didn't mean anything anymore. Meeting adjourned. No one moved at first, then slowly people began to stand, quietly, carefully, like they were leaving something fragile behind. Some glanced at me on their way out. Some avoided it completely. My father didn't move. Chloe didn't either. They stayed where they were, waiting for what I wasn't sure. Eventually the room emptied, the door closed, and it was just us. The same three people who had sat in that living room the night before, but nothing about this moment felt the same. My father stepped forward first, slower this time, measured. "Daniel," he said, not firm, not distant, just uncertain. I didn't respond, I just watched him. "We need to talk," he added. Chloe crossed her arms, still holding on to what was left of her confidence. "Yeah," she said, "we do." I looked at both of them. For a moment I thought about everything. The years, the expectations, the silence, then I spoke. "Not here." 2 words, simple but enough, because this conversation wasn't something that belonged in a room full of people. It was something else. Something heavier, something that couldn't be undone once it started. I turned slightly, heading toward the door, then paused. "You'll get your chance," I said without looking back, and this time they understood. Because now, for the first time, they weren't the ones in control of when that chance would come. I didn't make them wait long, not because I owed them anything, but because I wanted control over how this ended. Not chaos, not shouting. Not the same kind of moment they gave me. Clarity. I set the time for the evening, after hours, when the building would be quiet and there would be no one left to watch. No audience, no pressure, no excuses. I was already inside the office when they arrived. The city lights stretched across the glass behind me, glowing softly in the dark. The room was still, almost too still, like it was waiting for something to break it. At exactly the time I gave them, there was a knock. "Come in." The door opened slowly. My father stepped in first. Chloe followed right behind him. Neither of them spoke, not immediately. They looked different, not in the way they dressed. Not in anything obvious, but in the way they carried themselves. The confidence they had before was gone, replaced with hesitation, uncertainty. I motioned toward the chairs. "Sit." They did, without argument, without attitude. That alone said more than anything else. For a moment no one spoke. The silence wasn't awkward, it was necessary. "I don't understand," my father said finally. His voice was lower now, not firm, not distant, just unsure. "You understand enough," I replied calmly. He shook his head slightly. "No, I mean all of this. How long has this been going on?" 6 months. Chloe's eyes snapped toward me. 6 months, she repeated. "So you've just been pretending this whole time?" "Observing," I said. That word hit harder because it wasn't passive. It meant I had been watching, listening, learning. "You let us believe you were nothing," she said, her voice tightening. "Yes, why?" That question stayed in the air longer than anything else, because it was the only one that actually mattered. I looked at both of them, then answered. "Because I wanted to see who you were when you thought I had nothing." Silence heavy. Unavoidable, my father looked down, his hands tightened slightly. For the first time I saw it clearly, regret. "We didn't know," he said quietly. "That's the point," I replied. Chloe shifted in her seat, uncomfortable now. "This is just revenge," she said. "You're trying to make us feel small." I shook my head. "No, then what is it?" she asked. I leaned forward slightly. "This is consequence." The word settled in the room. It didn't need to be louder. "It just needed to be true. You made decisions," I continued. "You decided what I was worth. You decided I wasn't worth patience or understanding or even basic respect." "That's not fair," Chloe snapped. "It's accurate," I said calmly. She looked away, because deep down she knew it was. My father spoke again, slower this time. "I should have listened to you," he said. I nodded once. "Yes." No anger, no emphasis, just truth. "I made a mistake," he added. That word again, mistake, simple but heavy. Chloe stood up suddenly. "I'm not sitting here for this," she said. "You don't just get to act like you're better than us because of money." "I don't," I replied. That stopped her. "It's not about being better," I continued. "It's about being responsible for what I built." She didn't like that answer because it gave her nothing to fight. "You always needed approval," I added quietly. "Attention." "Validation," her jaw tightened. "I don't," I said. That was the difference, and we both knew it. "You can keep everything," she said sharply. "I don't need it." I nodded. "Okay." She froze for a second. "Okay," she repeated. "Yes," I said. "You're free to leave." No argument, no resistance, just a choice, and for a moment she didn't move because she expected something else. A reaction, control, anything, but I gave her nothing, and that made it real. She grabbed her bag quickly and walked out. The door closed behind her harder than it needed to. Silence returned. My father didn't follow. I don't expect forgiveness, he said after a moment. I'm not thinking about forgiveness, I replied. He nodded slowly. I just want a chance to make things right. I stood up and walked around the desk, stopped a few steps away from him. For what? I asked. He looked up at me. For everything. I studied him, not as a son, not as someone seeking approval, but as someone making a decision. You had your chance, I said. The words weren't harsh. They didn't need to be. They weren't tied to money or success, I continued. They were tied to how you treated me when none of this existed. He looked down again. I understand, he said, and this time I believed him. I walked back to the desk and picked up a folder, placed it in front of him. What's this? He asked. Your performance review, I said. Same as everyone else. He nodded. I won't expect special treatment, he said quietly. That's good, I replied, because that's all this was now, not family, not emotion, just decisions and consequences. He stood up slowly, holding the folder, then paused at the door. Daniel, I didn't respond. I am proud of you, he said. I stayed silent, not because I didn't hear him, but because I didn't need to hear it anymore. He left. The room went still again. I stood there for a while, looking out at the city lights. Everything felt clear. 6 months ago, I lost a job. Yesterday, I lost a family. But today, I understood something I never fully accepted before. Not everyone who leaves your life is a loss, and not every ending needs to be fixed. I turned off the lights and walked out, not angry, not proud, just done. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel, Real Life Revenge Series.